So welcome to another simple and affordable plant-based cooking with Brian and Joe. This is Brian, I'm Joe, and this one's going to be pretty simple. We're going to do 2 quick recipes for you and talk a little bit about plant-based cooking and making simple and affordable meals. As always, what we're trying to do is give you some recipes that are pretty easy to follow, but also show you that you can vary these recipes to make them your own and to work with the ingredients that you already have. So, Brian, why don't you tell everybody what we're going to make today?
Well, first one is the black bean tamale pie. Kind of think of a pot pie with a Mexican flair. This has got zucchinis, black beans, onions, peppers, some things like that. And you can adjust the spices to what you like. Mm-hmm. And it's got a nice cornbread crust. The dessert we're doing, because it's springtime, Easter and all that, I thought carrot cake. So we're going to do a carrot cake with vanilla frosting.
Sounds great. And along the way, we'll throw in a couple of cooking tips. So should we dive in and start looking at the first recipe?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So, there we go.
All right, so as always, you're going to start with the ingredients.
Yep, so we're starting with a medium onion, some spices. Oh, the garlic is in there, and we got the red pepper. Got my list of spices, the black bean, tomato, and zucchini.
So you made the black beans in the pressure cooker, but if you don't want to do that, you can always just use canned black beans.
Right, that was 15 ounces of black beans, so that's 1 can of a 15-ounce can.
Uh-huh. And here you are. This is the question that we get all the time. How do I saute an onion without oil?
This is dry sauteing. So you start off with a low heat, and you bring it up slowly, and you pay attention to it. So you notice I have not walked away. A little time has passed here. You're seeing some color coming onto them.
And you're chopping up the zucchini while you're doing that.
Yep.
And you can see the color now. You've got that really nice cooktop that'll let you control the temperature, and you can see that's 190 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, so that's a medium low.
Right, that's the point that I wanted to make. Not everybody's going to have that cooktop, but the point is that this is a really low heat, and you're moving it around to keep it from sticking. Should we?
I was going to say my other hand was reaching for actually a water bottle that I keep on hand.
This is the secret weapon.
Yep. In case you get any stickage and stuff like that, you can hit that. It also brings the temperature down really quick on the pan, and it becomes, right to where you want it to be. So just below the boiling point.
Mm-hmm. And you haven't put it in yet, but you do have tomatoes in there. You used canned tomatoes, I believe.
Used diced canned tomatoes with the juice.
If you want to use fresh tomatoes, you can.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was just easy. Now the can was actually 2 cups, and the recipe calls for 1. But I went ahead and used the full 2 cups, and you'll see that as the video goes on. But what I like to do is, as I'm stirring it around and I'm making sure things aren't sticking and all that, I'm also looking at the proportions. So, do I have enough onion? Do I have enough zucchini, peppers? When I put the beans in, I'll take a look at that.
There's something going on here that we ought to point out. So you have the lid on. That's going to keep the moisture in. So if it's a little dry, you want to do that. If it's wet, if you think it's too wet, you can cook it for a while with the lid off and dry it down a little bit.
Right, and the lid on gives it a little bit of steaming, so everything is getting cooked through.
It's also releasing all those little browned onion bits from the bottom, and that's where a lot of flavor is.
Yeah. And so here I'm adding the beans, and like I said, I'll give it a quick stir. I'll see how this looks.
Now, you were talking about the idea of the proportion of things, and that's another one of these places where I think these recipes are guidelines. So if you don't like zucchini, put something else in.
Yeah.
If you like corn, add some corn to this. If you can do whatever veggies you want in this. You can do whatever spices you want. You said this has a little bit of a kind of a Tex-Mex flavor to it. If you like a different flavor profile,
Yeah.
play around with the spices. If you like something that's really spicy, you can add more of the hotter peppers.
Yeah, if you want to go sort of like a Italian seasoning, then add Italian seasoning, herbs, things like that. And depending on your heat tolerances, you can go more or less.
Exactly.
And as you see here, I stirred in that first half of the tomatoes. I took a look, and then I just dumped in the other half. Another thing is we could add even additional things. So
Like I
not
said,
just
corn
substitute. Yeah, just you can actually add. And corn would have been a great thing to add to this.
So, I mean, basically what you're making here is a vegetable stew. So for our more advanced cooks out there, you can use this as a base for anything else that you want to make out of it.
Yeah. So a lot of your flavoring is going to come from mostly the spices.
Right.
And so whatever delivery system you choose.
I mean, if you wanted to just warm up some corn tortillas and put this into a corn tortilla and make some veggie tacos, that'd be great.
Right.
But you're going to make this crust topping.
This is the cornbread topping, and I've got cornmeal, some whole wheat flour, and the baking powder in here. And I wanted to mix them or whisk them together, make sure everything, no lumps or anything like that. This has got the soy milk, the maple syrup, and the apple cider vinegar in it. And I made that up about 15 minutes ahead of time.
Right. And with the soy milk, that'll start to kind of get a little chunky. It's kind of like making a vegan buttermilk.
Right. Yeah, because the soy will kind of curdle like it would a whole milk. And it gives you that nice buttermilk type flavoring.
And then instead of putting fat in this, we do applesauce, which is a really common substitute. We don't use a lot of applesauce, so we buy it in these little packages so that it doesn't go bad.
Yeah, it's pre-measured. They're quarter cups, or at least the ones we have are close enough to a quarter cup that I just count it as that. And so it's pre-measured for me.
Now this was a little bit of a goof because the whisk probably was not the best tool for doing this.
I actually kind of mismeasured my cornmeal on this too. I added more than I was supposed to. And so I could have added some more liquid to this, but I think it came out all right.
Yeah, it came out fine. It was a little crumbly, but...
yeah, and if you have your cornbread mix that you do like, or your recipe that you like, then use that.
Right. And I mean, we kind of get back to that idea of if you were going for more of an Italian flavor for this, you might want something that's more like a creamy polenta. So you might want something that's a little bit more dough-like.
Yeah.
So again, if you want to just make the recipe the way it is, fine. If you're a little bit more advanced cook or a little bit more adventurous, you can start playing around and doing some different things. And we really encourage you to...
play with your food.
As we like to say, play with your food, yeah. So you're just scraping that into, what is that, a 9x13 pan it looks like.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get, just use whatever you have.
Yeah. What you think is going to work for this. What it'll fit in.
Right. And I'll tell you, this was good. You could have pretty easily have done twice that and had the proportion of...
Yeah. And you can double the recipe. We do like a lot more filling to our bread ratio. So yeah, you could quite easily do that. You could also, because this came out a little thick, I could have rolled this out and just made a solid piece. But instead, I sort of spread it out, made like dumplings out of it.
So this is something else that you can play around with, but not just the ingredients, but how you treat them. Like you said, if you rolled this out, you would get one texture. You're doing it as this kind of crumbly thing, you would get a different texture.
And you're going to get different presentation.
Right. So if you like to play with your food, this is a place where you can play and produce somewhat different results from essentially the same recipe.
Well, the recipe here that I included with this, which you can download, the links should be in the description. You can do a cast iron in this. So if you had done the filling in the cast iron and then just put the cornbread
like
on
a
top,
traditional cast iron skillet.
right, and then put it in the oven, then you have another way of presenting this.
Yes.
So
And so there it is.
Now, I want it to cool down a little bit. It's still bubbling at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So that also gives a chance for everything to set and the flavors to come together.
Right. I think that's an important point, is a lot of people will take stuff right out of the oven and serve it, and with things like this, they just kind of run all over the plate and they don't look very good. Just 5 minutes in the pan will let it set up.
Yep. Now, one thing I forgot to do on this, and I'll show you on the break, sometimes the crust will stick to your sides,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like using metal on glass on the Pyrex here. So I'm sort of struggling a little bit breaking it free. But I have a plastic kind of dough knife that I have, and I'll show you, like I said, in the break. And you would run around the edge of that.
Mm-hmm. Just one of those little handy kitchen gadgets.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is. You've got some taco sauce.
Taco sauce.
That you're serving it with, but again, you can serve it with whatever your favorite
Yeah.
hot sauce is. If you don't like hot sauce, maybe a mild green salsa or whatever you like.
Yeah, and so there's the little plastic knife that I have, and you would just run it around the edge. So
There you go. So we should probably take.
and I don't know, since we
Oh yeah.
we had the video running, and so we didn't have a chance to show you this, but this is my water bottle.
It's just the kind of bottle that you'd keep ketchup or mustard in,
Yeah.
or barbecue sauce or whatever. This is a blank bottle that we bought, but if you get something in a squeeze bottle, just reuse one of those
Yeah.
squeeze bottles.
And I just have it on the counter next to the fry pan, and so if ever I need it, I just
If things get a little
Give
too
it a-
hot, you just squirt a little water in. So before we get into the next recipe, let's take a second and thank the Indianapolis Public Library
Yes.
and the Indianapolis Foundation Library Fund, which I always get wrong, but I think I got right this time, and their support of the Indianapolis Public Library Foundation for making all of this possible.
yes.
So there are a lot of people that choose, or a lot of reasons that people choose to make the kinds of recipes that we're presenting. Some people want to do it because they want to eat cruelty-free. Some of them because they want to support the planet health,
Yeah.
and some of them because they want to support their own personal
Their own
health.
personal health.
What's nice about these recipes is you can do all three at the same time.
Yeah.
We eat the way that we eat largely because of a principle called lifestyle medicine. And healthy eating is one of 6 pillars in lifestyle medicine. We're not going to go into that in depth here, but if you want to learn more about evidence-based nutrition, which is one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine, you can learn about those from the local library. The Indianapolis Public Library has a reading list available about evidence-based nutrition and some books on lifestyle medicine in general. And a lot of those books are available no matter what library system you are a part of. As always, nothing that we say here today should be construed as any kind of medical advice. But if you do want to make significant changes to improve your health, we strongly suggest that you work with your physician or other healthcare professional to make better decisions about how you eat and what lifestyle decisions you make around things like diet and exercise can have a profound positive impact on your
Yes.
health. So with all of that said,
Yeah.
let's make some cake.
Now that we've done our commercial. Again, like I said, we're getting into springtime. By the time this has come out, I think we've missed Easter. But this is it's a nice light cake, I think. And
Oh, it's pretty moist and
it's moist, but
substantial. I like this.
yeah, but I mean, it's not like it's super dense or
No.
So like a quick bread or something.
Right.
But so we'll get started on that. So we start off with the ingredients again. We've got non-dairy milk, also, and the dates, ripe banana, raisins, and vanilla. Now, the non-dairy milk I have warmed. I didn't bring it to boil or anything, but I did get it nice and warm because we're going to soak the dates and the raisins in this for about 15 minutes.
So here's an important point. You're taking the pits out of the dates. You may buy already pre-pitted dates.
Yes.
But no matter what you do, just make sure there aren't any pits in this because you're going to run it through the blender later on.
And sometimes they do miss. Even
Yes.
the dated, even if they've been...
In the pitted dates.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, you stuck that in the microwave for a little while.
Yeah, just to get it nice and warm. I mean, not boiling or anything like that.
And so that means when you put the raisins and dates in there that they will, excuse me, they'll soak up a little more and get nice and soft so
Yeah.
the blender doesn't have to work quite so hard.
So,
Adding a bit of vanilla.
yep.
And then once you put all this together, I think you're going to add the banana to that as well.
Yeah.
That goes, and you're just going to let that sit for a while, right?
Yeah, just let it sit for about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. At this point, you could just sort of walk away. But, again, I've got the towel underneath that because it is warm. I just don't want to shock it or have it cool down too quick.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll work on the base of the cake. I mean, all of this is part of the cake,
Mm-hmm.
but we have the old-fashioned rolled oats. The spices have the cinnamon, baking powder, baking soda, ground nutmeg, and the ground clove. You can substitute pumpkin pie spice, and you were thinking pulling the cinnamon and the clove out as well.
Right. So the pumpkin pie spice is basically cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, sometimes a few other ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's an opportunity to make it your own.
Right. If you want heavier spicing, you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I whisked them together, just sort of coat the oats a little bit, and also make sure that all the there weren't any lumps in there.
It's probably also worth noting that this does not have any flour in it, any wheat flour in it. So as long as you use gluten-free oats, this should be gluten-free.
Right. And I put in the raisins, and some more raisins, and some shredded carrot.
Right.
And I'm just letting the moisture of the carrots just sort of help bind things together, and I'm going to let this sit while I'm waiting for the liquid as well.
So this is another opportunity where you can look at this and say, carrots, right? Moist vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like carrots or I don't have carrots or I just want to do something else, I could have shredded a zucchini.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can also grind the oats too. So if you didn't want to have a whole oats texture
Right.
in it, you can also run that through your blender. And
Separately,
Yeah.
if you want to make oat flour, you need to do that in a dry blender, not
Yeah.
with the liquid.
yes,
You pointed this out already, but I kind of talked over you a little bit. It's important to point out that there were raisins in this twice. There were raisins in that
in the liquid.
blender container, but there are also whole raisins that'll be left over and
Yeah.
actually in. And you know what? If you don't like whole raisins, leave them out.
Yeah.
You could put chocolate chips in instead.
So, and I think you saw on the timer there, that was about 1:30. I just wanted to make sure it's nice and smooth, fully blended. So this becomes our liquid of the cake.
Well, your liquid and your sweetener,
Yes.
because that's what the work that those raisins and dates are
Yeah,
doing.
the dates mostly. And that's a nice little tool too. It's just this little scraper, but it's designed for a blender. So someday I'll have to pull that up and show it.
You're gonna have to do a tools tips
Yeah.
section in the videos.
Yes.
Now you're doing this in a silicone pan.
Well, we don't use oil. Now we could use parchment paper, but the silicone pans have really gotten good in the last.
And they've gotten a lot more affordable.
Yes.
I think that one came from Aldi for like $4 or something
Yeah,
like that.
it was inexpensive. And then just spread it out, and just making sure I don't have any air pockets or anything.
Now those are kind of a little floppy, so
Yes.
I noticed you put a hand underneath.
Yes.
That's the voice of, I think both of us have had the experience of either nearly dropping or dropping a cake on the
Yes.
floor because we didn't support it right.
Yep. And now for the frosting. So we're going to have, again, dates, cashews. Now these I soaked in boiling water ahead of time, and hoping to make them smoother.
Yeah, I think when you pre-soak them, you get less grit.
Yes, they don't have that powdery flavor or feel. And again, vanilla and water. And I think I added too much water, and it was because I soaked and.
Well, this is a basic
Yeah.
lesson.
Yeah.
Right? You know, in things like this, it's easy to add additional water. It's much harder to take the water away.
Yes.
So start with a little less and see what texture
Right.
you get.
Well, I
And
should have stopped here, and then I did bring some extra water, so while it was blending, I could add more.
Mhm.
And I should have just stopped before this.
Right.
Um,
It was still very tasty,
yes.
but you'll see at the end
Yeah.
where the icing or frosting rather is a little bit
Liquid.
yeah.
And of course, you want to refrigerate it, and that will help firm a little bit. But yeah, and so you can make mistakes, but it's edible. So,
All right. So once again, the high power blender,
yep.
which gets a lot of work out, and
And this was about a minute
a
40.
minute and a half.
Yeah.
But again, you want to blend it thoroughly so
Right.
that it's nice and smooth.
I took a look, and I was watching little flecks in the side.
Okay.
So when I was seeing chunks moving around, I just kept going, and then as they became smaller and smaller pieces, once it looked like it was one solid color.
And then I see a little taste test happening here. I think one of the things worth pointing out here is that in addition to taste, you're also feeling for texture. So if it's still a little gritty, or you're finding any chunks in there, just run the blender a little longer.
And your tongue picks up that more than your fingers do.
Yes.
So
All right, so there's the cake out of the oven, sitting on the rack to cool. There is the frosting.
yeah, it's been sitting about 5-10 minutes, and I had the blender in the refrigerator.
So you're going to do a little trick here too, right?
Yes. One of the tricks in doing cakes one of the hard parts is, as you're putting on your frosting, you usually will pull at the cake and you'll get crumbs, and then those show up in your frosting. There's a trick called a crumb coat. And I was going to say, I blanked on it there for a second. But it's called a crumb coat, and it's a very thin coating that you put on. And if you look on the cake here, you'll eventually see like pieces of the cake like poking through. Those trap all of those crumbs.
Right.
And then when you go
Well,
back,
most of those crumbs.
most of those crumbs. But when you go back and put your second coat on,
It's much easier.
it's usually cleaner and all that, and so you get a nice finished product.
And you can see here what we were talking about. The icing is, the frosting, I'm sorry, is a little bit on the thin side.
Yes.
But you're also...
Yeah. And because I'm inside the pan, I can't get that nice smooth off the edge flat top. So I'm purposely now putting in little waves onto the cake. And it's just the back of a spoon rocking back and forth.
So you can do whatever you want. There are all sorts of fancy plastic combs and scrapers that you can get to put patterns into your icing. Or...
Yeah, I could just take a fork and draw those across, and there we go. So there's the cake.
Right.
And
So let us know what you think. If you've made them, if you've made any of these recipes, we'd love to hear from you. If you like what we're doing, please let us know. If there are things that you would like to see, types of recipes you'd like to see, cooking techniques, let us know whether you think all of the variations are useful or if they're just confusing you. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see. Thanks again to the Indianapolis Public Library and all of the other supporters of the work that we're doing. Definitely check out your library for more recipes, more information about plant-based eating, and if you are interested in eating for health, lifestyle medicine and evidence-based nutrition is a wonderful way to get started. So until we see you again in a couple months.
Yeah. Take care and enjoy the good weather coming. Thank you.